Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is Congressman Chris Deluzio, a member of the For Country Caucus. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Brittany, for having me on.
In what has been described by the Trump administration as a fight against drug trafficking, the United States military has struck over 20 vessels in the Pacific and Caribbean since September. And as a result of these attacks, more than 80 people have been killed. But the administration says that all of these people who have died in the attacks have been narco-terrorists. So to start off the conversation, as a member of the House Armed Services Committee, what do you make of these boat strikes?
Well, I think we have two big problems, and those are just to start. Number one, the Congress, and thus the American people, have not authorized war against Venezuela or anyone else in the Caribbean or the Eastern Pacific. And yet, as you just said, we're seeing military strikes, we're seeing military action. We're now seeing in the news reports of perhaps unlawful strikes beyond the underlying question of whether Congress has authorized any of this. And of course, we haven't. And I think on top of that now, there's a real sense that I'm a part of that the Congress has to investigate and get to the bottom of whether any illegal conduct happened around this second strike, the second tap, as it's called, around some of the potential survivors of an initial strike back in September that we're just learning about. I think we need to have full congressional briefings and likely hearings. We need to get testimony. We need to see documents. We need to see the video. And I think ultimately the American people need to be able to see these videos to decide for themselves. And again, to get back to the legal rationale that the administration is using here, that's not something the public has even been able to see. And so I think we need much more oversight, much more accountability, much more transparency for the American people here.
And the leaders of the Intel Committee, as well as the Armed Services Committee, they saw the video. They had a briefing with Admiral Bradley, who was the one who ordered that strike on those survivors. As a member of the Armed Services Committee, what else do you know about these strikes other than what the public knows, and what questions do you still have about them?
We should be talking to Admiral Bradley, of course, but not just him. Others who were involved, up to and including Secretary Hegseth. Let's find out who knew what, who gave what orders, what they were seeing on that live video feed, and get to the bottom of exactly what happened. Let the facts take us where they will. And yet that hasn't happened yet. I think the full Armed Services Committee needs to do that work, and the American people need to be able to see, to learn for themselves what happened here and if anyone broke the law.
And there was a bipartisan statement from the chairman and ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. I want to read it in part. It said this: the committee is committed to providing rigorous oversight of the Department of Defense's military operations in the Caribbean. What does that oversight look like, and how has it been going so far?
Well, I think we need more of it, and I think it has to be in plain view for the American people, which hasn't happened at all. Yes, it's important that we have closed door and classified briefings. That's an important part of our work and always will be. But the American people haven't been given any insights into these strikes beyond the little information that the administration has put out. And the questions that are being asked that are really important, grave questions about whether there have been illegal strikes and illegal strikes specific to that September 2nd strike. The American people need to learn the basic facts, as do we in the Congress. So that's why I say there should be an investigation about what happened, who knew what when orders were issued, who issued those orders, what that live video feed looked like. We have to get to the bottom of all of it and decide, and the American people should decide whether they're comfortable with what's happened, whether anyone broke the law or broke the rules. Rather than guess, let's just find out and do a fulsome investigation. That may and probably should include people testifying under oath.
And there's a large question, especially surrounding the strike of the survivors who were clinging to that boat, on whether or not that is a war crime. What's your take on that, especially since you're a veteran?
Yeah, I think there's a real chance someone broke the law and the rules here. But rather than just guess, I want to see for myself the video. I want to talk to whomever was involved. And again, I think that goes all the way up to Secretary Hegseth, given the reporting of his involvement in orders and the conflicting ways he's talked about his own conduct that day. Let's find out what happened. Let's have the senior leaders, the civilians and military folks in the room. Let's have the secretary come talk to us in the Armed Services Committee. Let's see the video. Even President Trump, as I understand it, has called for the release of that video. The American people should be able to see it.
What do you make of Secretary Hegseth's talk about that day? He denied the reporting, any type of reporting that he made the order to kill any of the survivors, but he said that Admiral Bradley had the complete authority to do so, as well as that that was the right call to make. He also said this: "I did not personally see survivors because that thing was on fire and was exploded, and fire, smoke, you can't see anything." And he also added this is called the fog of war. What do you make of his characterization there?
Well, it's a different characterization than one he first made when he talked about the strike now months ago and said that it was a complete success or something like it. And so I hear inconsistency. And again, my job and my duty here is to get to the bottom of exactly what happened, what orders he may have given, what he knew, what the senior leaders involved knew. I don't need to guess because we have investigation power in the Congress and we should be using it on behalf of the American people. Let's find out exactly what happened. Let's find out who, if anyone, is responsible for any violations of the law, and let's hold them accountable. But rather than guess, let's do the investigations work.
And you are one of the 6 Democratic lawmakers who teamed up to urge members of the military as well as members of the intelligence community to refuse illegal orders. And you did that a couple of weeks ago. But were you referring to these boat strikes specifically when you talked about that?
This wasn't about any sort of specific orders that are given because, as you, I'm sure, know, it's impossible to find out exactly in real time what kinds of orders are given. In fact, what we did was state the law, which is something that Pete Hegseth himself has done, and there are clips of him saying it many times over the years, that service members aren't forced and can never be forced to follow illegal orders because it's something you learn, as I did at the Naval Academy. You might learn in boot camp, officer candidate school, you name it, and you train throughout your time in uniform to make sure that you know your obligations to follow lawful orders, to understand what a lawful order is, to train in those scenarios. It's something that our military is the best at in the world because we believe in the rule of law in this country. And the president's response to us stating the law, which is to say arrest them, kill them, hang them, is just dangerous, dangerous rhetoric. The overwhelming response of folks in Pennsylvania and beyond has been so supportive, and at the same time, absolutely critical of the president's call for our death, his attack on the legislative branch. It's dangerous stuff. And the country, I think, is sending a clear message that they've had enough of this president's dangerous rhetoric that has real consequences to members like me, our staffs, our families. It's dangerous stuff when someone speaks like this.
To that point, I mean, the president was posting stuff like seditious behavior, punishable by death. Did you think that you were going to get that response at all? Were you surprised? I mean, what was your reaction seeing that?
Well, of course, it's outrageous for the president to say such things. And I don't know who could predict that the president would call for anyone's hanging or death who's a member of Congress stating the law in the same way that Pete Hegseth, as now defense secretary, has stated it, stating the law the same way that commanders and the military JAG attorneys who advise them state it, the same way that drill instructors and others teach our troops when they're coming to the military their obligations. It's crazy stuff, and it's dangerous, and it's why the overwhelming response at home in Pennsylvania for me, and I know for others, has been to condemn the president's calls for violence, his attempts to intimidate elected members of Congress and the legislative branch. It's just dangerous stuff. And I've been very heartened to see at home in Pennsylvania so many Democrats, Republicans, independents just condemning this and saying enough is enough.
And my last question on this is that the FBI is reportedly looking to schedule interviews with all of the 6 who were in that video. Has the FBI reached out to you yet? Do you know anything about that?
I'm not participating in any voluntary interview, and I'll leave it at that.
I do now want to switch gears here just a little bit and talk about other news regarding Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The Pentagon Inspector General's report on Signalgate made news this week. It came out and it found that Hegseth violated the DoD's policy by using Signal to discuss the upcoming plan for a military strike. The report also found that Hegseth's actions, quote, created a risk to operational security that could have resulted in failed U.S. mission objectives and potential harm to U.S. pilots. What do you make of what this IG report found?
It's pretty damning stuff, right? The fact that the Inspector General found that Pete Hegseth, as Defense Secretary, put at risk operational success, could have put at risk and put into harm's way American pilots being sent on a dangerous mission. It's a failure of the highest order. I don't think Pete Hegseth is up for this job. I think he's failed at the job of secretary. And look, the president as commander in chief ought to have the best possible Secretary of Defense. There are nearly 350 million Americans in this country. In no world is Pete Hegseth the best American to be Secretary of Defense. I think the president and the American people ought to have a much better Secretary of Defense.
I understand that it seems that you don't have confidence in Hegseth's leadership here, but he responded to the IG report saying no classified information, total exoneration, case closed. Do you think that the case is closed here? Do you think that he should face any punishment surrounding his use of Signal?
I think he ought to be out of this job. It's clear from the report that he put at risk operational success and American pilots. It's clear from this report that he violated DoD policy, that he misused a personal device. He transmitted classified information that was in a classified setting onto an unsecure private device. It's reckless, dangerous stuff. This guy is putting at risk American success. We need better in the Pentagon.
Congressman, I appreciate the time today. I always love talking to a fellow Pennsylvanian. Thank you again. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks, Brittany. Have a great weekend.